Hi, this is Joanna Marie Cascante, and I will be your teacher for today. And this is Survey of Philippine Literature in English, Module 2. Our discussion for today will only be on the pre-colonial literature. So, you may be wondering, what is literature? Um, the word literature is derived from the Latin term litera, which means letter. It has been defined differently by various writers. Here are some. According to some scholars, literature expresses the feelings of people to society, to government, to surroundings, to his fellow men, and to his divine creator. According to Webster, literature is anything that is printed as long as it is related to ideas and the feelings of people, whether it is true or false, or just a product of one's imagination. Alright, let's proceed to the characteristic of Philippine pre-colonial literature. Just a quick overview. Pre-colonial literature refers to the literary works of our Filipino ancestors before the Spanish occupation in the Philippines. These pre-colonial literary works simply prove that Filipinos already had a civilization even before the Spaniard period, and that our Filipinos ancestors were creative and imaginative in every possible way. So, what are we waiting for? So, let's start learning the 5 characteristics of Philippine pre-colonial literature. The first one is pre-colonial literature practices the art of storytelling, called oral tradition. Oral tradition is the passing of stories or tales from one generation to another through the word of mouth. The definition of oral tradition deviates from what literature really means. This is still considered as part of literature. It's a special consideration. Now, another interesting fact about oral tradition is that there is no permanent story. This means that the details in the story may change depending on the storyteller. This makes a story even more fun and interesting. The second characteristic is the common theme of pre-colonial literature. And the theme are the following. Okay, let's start with nature. Natural phenomena are explained through oral traditions. We also have supernatural events. Filipinos up until now are fond of talking about supernatural creatures, and these creatures were made because of two main reasons. The first reason is to protect the children from wandering of the woods. And the second reason is to protect nature from people who are trying to destroy it, such as cutting down trees or killing other living things. The third theme is bravery of heroes. Our ancestors also believed in human beings with superpowers. They believe that they are the gods that dwell in the human realm, and they will be protected, or our Filipinos ancestor will be protected if they befriend these gods. And the last common theme are the custom and ideologies. So the stories of literary feats of pre-colonial Philippine literature mainly mirrors the lifestyle and tradition of the Filipinos before. It may also describe that our ancestors already had the wit and creativity even before we were colonized. Now, let's proceed to our third characteristic, and that is Philippine pre-colonial literature, was considered their truth. Now, during pre-colonial times, there was no scientific basis yet to explain the events that are happening around the pre-colonial Filipinos. So, in order to make sense of the senseless, our ancestors created stories to explain their so-called truth. However, in the modern times, these stories are considered mainly a fantasy. Okay, let's proceed to our fourth characteristic, pre-colonial literature. Stories have plots that are generally shorter than any other genre of literature. The main focus to keep the audience alert and interested. Also, the characters in the story tend to have one outstanding quality, which make them easy to identify. Examples of this is characters, and their outstanding quality are the wisdom of Aligoyon, the strength of Biyag Nilamang, and the laziness of Juan Tamad. These characters are easily determined because of that one trait that is prominent of them. And our last characteristic is that the language is full of melody and rhythm. One literary piece or pieces that pre-colonial literature has are the song and chants that are used in rituals, from the song of the Cordilleran tribes alone. Our ancestors definitely have created literary masterpieces that would prove that they have melody and rhythm. There are four forms of literature, and the first form is oral literature. And there are three elements of oral literature. These are riddles or bugtong-bugtong, proverbs or salawikain, and tanaga. Okay, let's have first riddles, or in Tagalog, we call it bugtong-bugtong. So these are actually the statements that contain superficial words, but they function figuratively as metaphors and in the form of questions. So these are questions that demands deeper answers, so it deals with everyday life. This is used in the past as form of game in a small or large gatherings. Okay? So let's have an example. May ulo, walang tiyan. May leeg, walang baywang. The answer is bote or bottle. Another example. Binili ko ng mahal, sinabit ko lamang. The answer is hikaw or earring. Let's proceed to the second form of oral literature, and we call it proverbs, or in Tagalog, salawikain. So, this one is a wise statement usually given by parents or elders of the community. For example, kapag maiksi ang kumot, matutong mamaluktot. These proverbs means that when you experience challenges, problems, trials, in your lives or in our lives, we learn to resist but adjust to our ability. In the challenges and trials we face, we must have confidence in our own ability to overcome them. Let us learn from the things we have already gone through, and it will serve us as a lesson in the problems we may go through in the future. Another example, kung may isinuksok, may madudukot. This saying has to do with being frugal. Because when you have something left over or set aside, such as money, in times of emergency and you are in need, you can get and use it. And the last form is tanaga, a short 4-line poems involved from this oral tradition. Each line contained 7 or 8 syllables, and at the heart of the poem was a cryptic metaphor called a talinghaga. The second form is folk song. Folk songs. These are the lyrics that are usually chanted. So this is usually contains ideas on aspiration, hopes, everyday life, and expression of love for the loved ones. It is bounded by the learning of good morals, and it is easy to understand because it is straightforward and not figurative in nature. So there are examples or elements of folk songs: the lullabies, the drinking song or tagay, the ambahan, the song of death or kanogan, and the last one is the religious song or kalusan. Okay? So let's have lullabies. So here, as you can see in the picture, there is a mother and a baby, and it is locally known as the hele. So lullabies is locally known as the hele. And as I have mentioned earlier, there is a mother and a baby. So when we say lullabies, these are the songs sung by the parents to put babies into a sleep. Song content tells that life is hard and parents are hoping that the child will not experience hardship in life. Actually, there is an example for this. The ugoy ng duyan. If you are not familiar with it, then you can search it on the YouTube. Okay? Next is drinking song. Actually, it is locally known as tagay, as a song during drinking session. There are people, of course, a group of men, who are having a drinking session and they chant with a drinking song to enjoy the session among them. Alright? Next is ambahan. Actually, this is traditionally sung and may focus on various topics such as courtship, giving advice to the young, asking for a place to stay, and saying goodbye for a friend. Next is the Song of Death. It's a lamentation that contained the role of good deeds done by the dead and can make him or her memorable. Okay? And the last one is religious song. Songs are chants given during exorcism or thanksgiving during good harvest. Alright? Okay. Third, Philippine folktales. We have myth, legend, fable, and fantastic stories. Okay? Actually, these are the stories of the native Filipinos. These deal with the power of nature, personify their submission to deity or what we call Bathala, and how this deity is responsible for the blessing and calamities. Okay? So, this also talk about irresponsibility, stability, deception, and fallibility. Okay? That eventually leads to the instilling of good morals. So, this is what we call a Philippine folk tales. Okay? So, let's have them one by one. Myth. There are mythical creators in the Philippine folklore. As you can see in the first picture, someone has a wings. Actually, this is what we call in Tagalog, or in Filipino we call this manananggal. Okay, as you can see, there is no legs, but it's a half human, the upper part of the body. Because at exactly 12 midnight, then the person who is manananggal originally will turn into manananggal. Okay? And the second picture is what we call diwata. Actually, when we say diwata, she is a caretaker of the nature. She usually lives in the forest. Alright? So, let's proceed next is legend. And example, actually, this is known story, or we call legend as alamat. So, through legend, the native understood mysteries around them. These stories usually come with a moral lesson that gives credit to supernatural powers, supernatural occurrences, and other out of this world native imagination. So, as I have told you, ang alamat ng pinya. There is a kid named Pina, and the parents of Pina kept on asking her of the things that she might have seen, but Tina always responded that she never seen one. So what the creature did to her? The creature gave Pina many eyes. That's the alamat of Pinya, or that's the legend of Pinya. Next fable is si Pagong at si Matching. Okay? When we say fables, actually it is a short or brief story that cater the children of the native Filipinos and are usually bounded by a good manners and right conduct. These stories use animals as character. That's why we have here Matching at Pagong, and they represent a particular barrio or characteristic in the story of Pagong and Matching. This Matching usually wants to win over Pagong until such time that Matching received his own karma. Okay? He took advantage of the kindness of Pagong, and as I have mentioned at the end, Matching received his karma. What he did to Pagong was done to him by himself. Okay? So, one thing that Filipinos should never forget about the story of Matching and Pagong is don't take advantage your family, your friend, or your neighbor. And the last one is fantastic stories, which is deal with underworld characters such as aswang, tiyanak, duwende, kapre, and others. The last one, or the fourth one, is the Philippine epic, which is something that refers to a heroic story or something that is heroic or grand. For example is the Biyag ni Lamang. This epic is very lengthy narratives that are based on the oral tradition. This contains encounters of fighters, stereotypical princess, or heroes that save a damsel in distress. Actually, Biyag ni Lamang is the person who has a muscle, a strong man, and a fighter. Alright, so that is an example of the story of an epic. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you understand something about the pre-colonial period in the Philippine literature. I hope you learned. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.